We all rely on farmers and ranchers, but farming is riskier than other businesses out there. Crop insurance helps farmers manage their risk. With crop insurance, farmers put skin in the game by paying premiums and shouldering deductibles. That keeps taxpayers from having to pick up the whole bill every time disaster strikes. Today, about 90% of U.S. farmland is insured, providing $100 billion in protection to more than 130 different kinds of crops. It's a testament to the program's success.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And a bit of a story time here before we get going. As you all probably know, there was a government shutdown last week. And we'd like to keep this Week in Review video informational and current and up to the minute. And we really had no idea how to do that last week because really up until about 11:59, there was kind of a will they or won't they aspects to this potential government shutdown. And Phil and I both had to hop on airplanes. And so we apologize. We had to skip a video last week. We'll never abandon you again. We won't. We have a lot of stuff to go through this week, so we'll be sure to dive right into that.
Well, wait till the next government shutdown. We'll figure it out again.
Yeah. We'll be in the same situation in a couple of weeks. More on that to come. But speaking of, Phil, we saw the government shutdown. In all, I think it lasted about 70 hours. It was over by the time Monday rolled around. But really, potentially some kind of lingering effects on Capitol Hill more broadly as you look at just the very short government shutdown there.
Yeah. Well, the immediate effect is it just slows things down in the agencies. They spend time shutting the government down on Monday, and then they have to come back to work at Tuesday. Meetings get canceled, so it just slows down the government. But the bigger picture here on Capitol Hill is that this whole fight over the immigration issue, DACA, that's the illegal immigrants who were brought here as children, and they got legal status under the Obama administration. President Trump canceled that program. Now Congress is trying to do something about it. They have right now have a deadline in March. And this has just slowed down a whole host of other issues, several of which are very important to agriculture, and Congress is just sort of slow walking right now.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned a number of things that are very important to agriculture. There was talk about a lot of those things potentially working their way into an omnibus deal. Things like cotton, things like a co-op issue with the tax bill.
Right.
Are those conversations ongoing at this point?
Absolutely they are, but in terms of getting them done, things just getting delayed. Now we're looking at March for getting a lot of these things passed, assuming that they will be. And it's not really a problem with those. The cotton and dairy provisions, just a recap. Those are one of them. The cotton producers very much want to get back into the price loss coverage program and the farm bill. They were left out of that in 2014 bill. Dairy producers want some more assistance to improvements to the margin protection program. The House and Senate Agriculture Committees would very much like to get this done because it would create some, the way they're going to do it in the Senate is create some new funding for the Farm Bill to take care of these two issues. It's very important to be able to get going on writing the new Farm Bill, but they need to get these into law. And just the fact that we've slowed down on the budget and getting the budget done for the rest of this fiscal year, and this is just a lot of uncertainty right now and delay. And now it doesn't look like they can really practically get started on Farm Bill until at least March. Then you're into Easter, the Easter recess, which is for 2 weeks. Just really makes doing a Farm Bill that much more difficult.
And as I'm sure is something that'll come as a surprise to no one watching this video, there's elections in November that are also going to play a huge role into the calendar and the schedule in Washington, as well as how willing people are going to be to vote on a piece of legislation like the Farm Bill several months in advance.
Yeah, and everything in an election year, everything here pretty much shuts down after July. Come back a little bit in September, gone most of the month of October. This Farm Bill essentially expires on September 30th. There are commodity provisions that extend through the marketing year, but I mean, getting something done by September 30th looks very difficult right now and getting more difficult by the day.
It'll be an uphill battle, and something that was kind of thrown into the additional conversation around that farm bill was some principles that we saw that released this week from the Department of Agriculture, and specifically Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue. He made a trip to Pennsylvania to unveil these principles. Agri-Pulse's Bill Thompson was along for that trip. You can read his story online. But Phil, just kind of taking a 30,000-foot view at the principles that he unveiled, really kind of left a lot of room to work with Congress on that. But he does kind of have a wish list of sorts for the legislative branch here.
Yeah, and it's very much a list of priorities, about 4 pages. Talks about the importance of the farm programs, a lot to like if you're in terms of the farm groups, commodity groups wanting to know that the administration is supportive of this. A couple of things that raise concerns in some quarters. One is there was a discussion in there about work and food stamp program, SNAP. The secretary on his trip in Pennsylvania that Bill Thompson was on emphasized the need to tighten work requirements for SNAP recipients. That's certainly probably going to be a feature of the House version of the Farm Bill, possibly the Senate, but it's going to be difficult for most Democrats to accept, so it could create some problems and challenges in terms of getting the bill passed. Another part of those principles talked about the need to keep the Farm Bill in line with the President's budget priorities, and as you will probably, our viewers will probably recall, a year ago the President proposed to slash crop insurance by close to $30 billion and to cut deeply in a number of other programs. And if that's what the administration wants to push for, that could be a problem. So that, some people were a little alarmed by that language that was put in there.
Well, and it's an interesting perspective for Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue to take, because as many of you will remember, he was not in office when this budget was drafted. He did not exactly overexert himself to defend that budget on Capitol Hill, and so it's interesting that he would bring the budget into the conversation when we're talking about the
right. He
bill.
took office at the end of April. The budget actually came out in May, and the Secretary emphasized that he really had no role in preparing it. So it's going to be interesting to see when the next budget comes out. Could be February the 12th, maybe delayed beyond that, but when this next budget comes out, it's going to be interesting to see what signs of influence there are in terms of Secretary Perdue.
Mm-hmm. So that's something to watch. A few other things kind of looming on the horizon, want to make sure that we make you aware of. Next week, President Trump gives his State of the Union address. Will there be a lot of agricultural tidbits coming out of that speech? I'm not exactly holding my breath, but some broader policy implications to unfold there. Could be some discussion of trade. Obviously, a lot of things to watch in that speech.
Right. We're probably looking for something on infrastructure. Mm-hmm. It's we've heard this infrastructure plan is coming. A draft leaked earlier this week. We expect the president to talk about that some. It'll be interesting to see if he gets into more specifics and more importantly, if something actually comes out of the White House.
So it'll once again be Infrastructure Week here in Washington, and also
we've had that before.
We've had several. I believe there's been 52 weeks in this administration. I think 45 of them have been Infrastructure Week. Also, 2 weeks from now, government funding expires, so Congress once again staring down the barrel of a government shutdown if an agreement is not able to be reached here in the next 2 weeks. So we'll be sure to keep you up to date on all of those and other tidbits of information going on here in Washington, D.C. Also across the country, as it is conference season, and a number of Agri-Pulse reporters traveling to various conferences throughout the country. So we'll be sure to keep you up to date on the information that's happening that is important to you and your industry all across the country. But I think that's going to do it for this week. For Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.